Hi guys, well here I am again, sitting out here in my backyard on my deck. I just got back from a walk a little bit ago, but I wanted to talk to you today about something that's been on my mind. That's a fellow named Job. Job went through some terrible times, even worse times than we're going through right now. Job was a man in the Bible who had a lot of possessions. He was very rich. He was considered the richest man in the whole area. He owned a lot of livestock. He had a large family. The family even got along. They would get together and have family events and stuff together, his sons and daughters. And Satan took notice of Job because Job was a very righteous man. He tried to keep all the rules that God had put out, and he shunned evil. And so Satan went to God and said, well, Job only follows you because you're blessing him, and he's so rich. And so God said, well, do to him what you need to. And so Satan attacked Job. Job lost all of his livestock. He lost all of his possessions. Even toward the end, a great wind came and blew down the house that his children were together having a gathering in, and just killed all of his children. And, I can't even imagine the sorrow and the suffering from that. And yet Job did not turn away from God. He continued to follow God. And so Satan went back to God, and God said, hey, Job's still following me. And Satan says, yeah, well, that's because you haven't attacked his health. He'll give up all his possessions, but he won't give up his health. He'll curse you then. And so God allowed Satan to attack Job, and it says that Job was struck with boils from head to foot. He was in agony. He was in such bad shape that he was taking a piece of ceramic pottery that had broken and was scraping the boils off of his skin. His friends came to console him, and he was in such agony that they just sat silently for 7 days, just sitting there watching, because they knew he was in too much agony to even really speak much. And finally, Job complained about the day that he was born. He cursed the day that he was born. He wished he had never been born. And anyhow, he began to complain about that. And so Job's friends then spoke up finally, and they accused Job that you must have some sin in your life, and that's why God is doing this to you. And Job maintained his innocence. Job says, no, I'm keeping the law, I shun evil, I did all that, and this should not have happened to me. Now, you have to understand, back in those days, everybody thought that if you were good, then God blessed you. But if you were bad, then God allowed bad things to happen to you. And I think Job felt that way too. And Job felt probably because he was a righteous man and was doing the right things, that God should always have taken care of him. So finally, Job does curse the day that he was born, and then his friends try to accuse him of different things. But God finally speaks up. And God asked Job, he says, who are you to question me? Who are you to put yourself on equal footing as me? And God talks about some things in nature that Job would have appreciate, and how majestic and wonderful these things were, and how God had created them. And it causes me to think about all the wonderful things of God, and the power and the might of God. Sometimes we kind of have to be reminded of God's power and might. We were learning in science when we were in school here recently that how perfectly balanced everything is here on Earth. For instance, water has the properties that it doesn't evaporate too quickly, or it would all evaporate from the sun and we wouldn't have any water. And it doesn't boil too easily, or it would all boil away from the sun. And so the sun rays are just right, the water's properties are just right. The sun feeds the grass and the plants and the animals, and we are able to get food from all of that. And just how perfectly balanced everything is. And yet sometimes, even in this wonderful nature that God has created, we see things like tornadoes and hurricanes and earthquakes and things of tremendous power that we can't begin to imagine. And so God questions Job. He said, who are you to put yourself on an equal standing as I am, and to question my decisions? And so Job then says, God, I have spoken of things that are far too wonderful for me to speak about and to complain about. And Job says something that I think is really interesting. Job said, before now I had heard about you, but now I have seen you. And that tells me about an intense difference in Job's relationship with God, a pivotal point where his life was changed. Job said he had known about God, And that's the way a lot of people are. A lot of people know about God, but they don't really know God. Job says, now I have seen you. And, I don't think that meant Job saw God physically, but I think that it meant that he had gotten such a close insight into God that it was like God's presence was there with him. We can know people, but we may not, or know about people, but we may not know them. I have seen couples, and being in the pastorate, and even counseled with couples, that sometimes they know a lot of things about each other, but they really don't know each other. They don't intimately. They don't have that knowledge intimately. And God is the same way. We can know a lot of things about God, but we may not know him intimately and personally. On a first name basis, where we feel like we're a part of his family. And so I think that one of the things that we should do in times like this, in the coronavirus, and comparing that to Job's suffering that he went through, is that caused Job to take time to re-examine his relationship with God and allowed him to listen to God when God did speak. And I think sometimes when we're doing the being safe at home and doing those kind of, keep our social distancing and those kind of things, that there is one that we can look to and try to draw closer to in these times. And maybe you've known a lot about God, but you really don't know God intimately, personally, as that he is your Lord and Savior, that he cares about you and loves you, that he wants to hold you in his arms. Maybe you don't have that kind of an intimate relationship with God. And if that's true, then right now is a great time to do that. I appreciate all the things that they're talking about on the TV and social media and different places like that. And they have a lot of helpful things going on out there, and people showing you how to do exercises at home to take care of your physical body, and how to do telecommunications to take care of your relationships with other people and to stay happy and stuff like that. But most of them miss the spiritual aspect. And honestly, I believe that the spiritual part of our lives, the part that's going to live on past this life, I think it's more important to take care of that part of our lives. Now, should we ignore the other? No. We have to pay attention to our emotions and to our physical bodies and those kinds of things, our relationships. But we need to remember that the most important thing, the thing that will endure, and the thing that will get us through times like this, is our relationship with our Heavenly Father. And if you don't know him well, I'd invite you to just simply pray and say, God, I want to be yours, and turn your life over to him and ask him to reveal how to do that, and he will. And, when I was 17, I asked God to take over my life, and I'll share a testimony some other time. But he did. And, I wasn't perfect overnight. But at that point in my life, I can see there was a change in direction. I was headed one way, and now I'm headed another way, because basically I told God that from today on, you're in control. And so I hope you've done that. I hope that if you do know God, that you'll use this time to draw closer to him. If you don't know God personally and intimately, I pray that you'll talk to him about it. And believe me, he'll answer. Okay? Thanks. See y'all later.